The large spaceship named Horizon slowed as it approached the blue-green planet. Captain Jin-Ho Kim stood on the bridge, his hands clasped behind his back. After 5 months of space travel, they had finally reached Nixia, home of the alien race known as the Veiled Ones. "Prepare for orbital entry," Jin-Ho said. His voice was calm, but inside, his heart beat faster. This mission was the most important of his career. Jin-Ho was 45 years old, with short black hair that showed some gray at the temples. His face was serious most of the time, but his eyes were kind. He had worked for the Terran Scientific Diplomatic Corps for 20 years. In that time, he had met 7 different alien species, but the Veiled Ones were special. "Captain, we have permission to land," said the pilot, a young woman named Mina. Jin-Ho nodded. "Take us down." The ship began its descent through the clouds. Through the main window, Jin-Ho could see the capital city of the Veiled Ones coming into view. Tall buildings made of a shining blue material reached up toward the sky. Flying vehicles moved between them like fish in a stream. Jin-Ho turned to look at his team. There were 3 other humans who would go with him to meet the aliens. Dr. Hannah Park was checking her equipment one last time. She was a xenobiologist, which meant she studied alien life forms. Hannah was 38, with long hair tied back in a neat bun. She was the smartest person Jin-Ho had ever met. Next to her stood Taiwan Li, a man who knew more about alien cultures and languages than anyone else on Earth. He was tall and thin, with round glasses that he pushed up his nose when he was thinking. The last member of the team was Sung-Min Choi. He was in charge of security, making sure the team stayed safe. Sung-Min was younger than the others, only 30, but he had special training that let him sense the emotions of others. This skill was very useful when meeting new species. "Remember," Jin-Ho said to his team, "the Veiled Ones have only one rule that cannot be broken. Never try to see what is under their face coverings." The others nodded. Everyone knew this rule. The Veiled Ones had been discovered 50 years ago. They were an advanced race that mostly kept to themselves. All of them wore coverings over their faces when meeting other species. No human had ever seen what they looked like underneath. Some people thought it was a religious practice. Others believed the aliens might have a good reason to hide their faces. Whatever the truth, trying to remove a Veiled One's face covering was considered the worst offense possible. Ships had been forced to leave Veiled One space for lesser mistakes. The Horizon landed on a large platform near the center of the city. Jin-Ho and his team put on their formal uniforms. This was a diplomatic mission, the first time humans would try to make an official friendship with the Veiled Ones. As they walked down the ramp from their ship, Jin-Ho saw a group of aliens waiting for them. There were 5 Veiled Ones standing in a line. They were about the same height as humans, with slender bodies covered in robes of different colors. Each one wore a face covering that hung from the top of their head to their shoulders. The veils were made of a thin, flowing material that changed colors slightly as they moved. The Veiled One in the middle stepped forward. The alien's veil was a deep purple color with small silver designs on it. "I am Minister Sula," the alien said in perfect English. Her voice was musical, like bells ringing. "Welcome to Nixia. We are honored by your visit." Jin-Ho bowed slightly. "Thank you for receiving us, Minister Sula. I am Captain Jin-Ho Kim. These are my colleagues, Dr. Hannah Park, Taiwan Li, and Sung-Min Choi. We bring greetings from Earth." Sula turned to the others in her group and spoke in her own language. The sounds were like water flowing over rocks. Then she turned back to the humans. "Please follow me. We have prepared a place for you to stay. Tomorrow, you will have the great honor of meeting our queen." The humans followed the Veiled Ones to a small vehicle that floated above the ground. As they traveled through the city, Jin-Ho looked out the windows with interest. The buildings seemed to be made of a material that was partly see-through. Many of them had plants growing on their walls and roofs. Veiled Ones walked along wide paths or rode in flying vehicles. "Your city is beautiful," Jinho said to Sula. "Thank you," she replied. "This is Sirhan, our oldest city and the home of our queen. It is over 5,000 years old, though most of what you see was built in the last few hundred years." The vehicle stopped in front of a building that looked like it was made of blue crystal. Sula led them inside, where more veiled ones waited. "These will be your helpers during your stay," Sula explained. "They will show you to your rooms and answer any questions you have." After settling into their rooms, the human team met in a common area to talk. "What do you think so far?" Jinho asked. Hana was looking at readings on her tablet. "Their biology is fascinating. They seem to breathe the same air as us, but their body temperature is lower." Taiwan was making notes in a small book. "Their language has some patterns I've never heard before. I'm recording everything for later study." Sun Min was quiet for a moment before speaking. "There's something strange about how they feel. When Minister Sula mentioned the queen, I sensed fear, not respect or honor, but fear." Jinho frowned. "Are you sure?" "Yes," Sun Min said. "And it wasn't just Sula. All of them felt the same way." "That's interesting," Hannah said. "I wonder what kind of ruler their queen is." A veiled one entered the room, making them stop talking. This one had a green veil with blue patterns. "I am Jun Seo," he said, his voice deeper than Sula's. "I will be your guide during your stay. Would you like a tour of the building?" "Yes, thank you," Jinho said, standing up. Jun Seo led them through hallways and rooms, explaining the purpose of each. The building was a guest house for important visitors. It was very old, Jun Seo told them, but had been updated many times. While the others asked questions about Nixian food and customs, Hannah noticed something on one of the walls. It looked like an old carving, partially hidden behind a newer panel. She moved closer to look. The carving showed figures that seemed to be veiled ones, but some of them had no veils. Their faces were visible in the stone. "Jun Seo," Hannah called. "What is this carving? It shows your people without veils." Jun Seo came over quickly. He looked at the carving for a long moment. "This is very old," he said finally, "from before the time of veiling. Our ancestors did not always wear veils." "When did they start?" Hannah asked. "About 1,000 years ago," Jun Seo said, "when the first queen came to power. It was her command that all should wear veils in the presence of others." "Why?" Hannah asked. Jun Seo seemed uncomfortable. "It is our way. The veil protects us and others." "Protects you from what?" Hannah pressed. "That is enough questions for now," Jun Seo said. "It is getting late. You should rest before your audience with the queen tomorrow." After Jun Seo left, Hannah took pictures of the carving with her tablet. Later that night, in her room, she enlarged the images to study the faces of the unveiled aliens. What she saw made no sense. The faces carved in the stone looked almost human. They had 2 eyes, a nose, and a mouth, arranged just like human faces. But the veiled ones were from another planet, millions of light years from Earth. How could they look so similar? Hana went to Jinho's room and showed him the pictures. "This doesn't seem possible," Jinho said, staring at the tablet. "Aliens from different planets shouldn't look this much like humans. It must be a coincidence. Or the carving isn't accurate," Hana suggested. "Maybe the artist didn't know what their people really looked like." "Maybe," Jinho said, but he didn't sound convinced. They both jumped when there was a knock at the door. Jinho opened it to find Sula standing there. "Captain Kim," she said, "I must speak with you about tomorrow's meeting with the Queen." "Of course," Jinho said, letting her in. Hana quickly put away her tablet. Sula seemed nervous. "There are special rules when meeting Queen Neri. You must not speak unless spoken to. You must not move from the spot where you are placed. And most importantly, you must never look directly at her veil." "Not at her veil?" Jinho asked, confused. "I thought we just couldn't try to see under it." "That is the general rule," Sula said. But for the queen, it is different. Her veil is special. Looking directly at it is forbidden. We'll be careful, Jinho promised. Sula seemed to relax a little. Good. The queen has ruled us for over 200 years. She is wise, but strict about tradition. After Sula left, Hannah turned to Jinho. 200 years. How long do the Veiled Ones live? According to our information, their average lifespan is about 120 years, Jinho said. So yes, the queen has lived much longer than normal. And did you notice how Sula's voice changed when she talked about the queen? Hannah asked. Sungmin was right. She's afraid. Jinho nodded slowly. Something strange is going on here. Let's keep our eyes open tomorrow. That night, Jinho had trouble sleeping. He kept thinking about the faces in the carving and Sula's fear. What secret were the Veiled Ones hiding? And what would they find when they met the queen tomorrow? As he finally drifted off to sleep, Jinho didn't know that he was about to discover a truth that would change two civilizations forever. Morning came with the soft chiming of bells. Jinho woke up and looked out his window at the alien city. The three suns of Nixia were rising, painting the sky in shades of purple and orange. Today was the day they would meet Queen Neri of the Veiled Ones. Jinho felt both excited and nervous. After a quick breakfast of strange but tasty Nixian fruits, the human team prepared for the royal meeting. They put on their best uniforms and followed Minister Sula to a large flying vehicle. The royal palace is on the mountain above the city, Sula explained as they flew upward. It has been the home of our queens for 1,000 years. Hannah leaned close to Jinho and whispered, Did you notice she said queens, not kings, and queens? Jinho nodded. From what they had learned, the Veiled Ones had only ever been ruled by queens, never kings. The palace came into view. It was huge, made of the same blue crystal as the guest house, but much larger and more beautiful. Tall towers reached into the sky, and a great dome sat in the center. The flying vehicle landed on a wide platform. A group of Veiled Ones waited for them, wearing red veils with gold designs. These were royal guards, Sula explained. Remember, Sula said to the humans as they walked toward the palace, do not speak unless the queen speaks to you first. Do not move from your place, and never look directly at her veil. They entered the palace through tall doors that opened by themselves. Inside was a long hallway with high ceilings. The walls had more carvings, but these were newer and showed only veiled figures. At the end of the hallway was a round room with a great dome above it. In the center of the room was a platform that floated a few feet off the ground. On this platform was a large chair made of a shining white material, and on the chair sat Queen Neri. Jinho had to stop himself from gasping. The queen was taller than the other Veiled Ones. She wore robes of deep red that seemed to glow with their own light, but it was her veil that caught everyone's attention. Unlike the simple veils of the other aliens, the queen's veil was made of a material that moved and changed. Colors swirled across it like clouds in a storm. It was beautiful, but somehow scary at the same time. Following Sula's instructions, the humans kept their eyes down, looking at the floor instead of directly at the queen. You may approach, said a voice. It was like Sula's musical voice, but deeper and with a strange echo, as if two people were speaking at once. The humans walked forward until they stood before the floating platform. Welcome to Nixia, said Queen Neri. I am pleased the humans wish to make official ties with my people. Jinho bowed low. Thank you, Your Majesty. We are honored by your welcome. You will stay for 1 month, the queen said. In that time, you will learn about us, and we will learn about you. If all goes well, we will sign a treaty of friendship at the end of your visit. That would be our great pleasure, Jinho said. The queen moved slightly in her chair. Jinho noticed that her movements were very smooth, almost too perfect. Minister Sula will continue to be your guide, the queen said. You may explore the city, but certain areas are forbidden. Sula will tell you which ones. The meeting was short. The queen asked a few questions about Earth, which Jin-ho answered carefully. Then they were dismissed. As they left the throne room, Jin-ho felt relieved. The meeting had gone well, but something about the queen bothered him. Her movements, her voice, they seemed different from the other veiled ones. Back at the guest house, the team talked about their meeting with the queen. "Did you notice she never moved her hands from the arms of her chair?" Hannah asked, and her voice had that strange echo. Ta-won added. Sung-min looked troubled. "I couldn't read her emotions at all. It was like trying to read the feelings of a wall." "What do you think it means?" Jin-ho asked. "I don't know," Sung-min said, "but it's not normal. Every living being has emotions I can sense. Even plants have simple feelings. But the queen, nothing." Over the next few weeks, the humans learned more about Nixia and its people. They visited schools, hospitals, and markets. They watched veiled ones work and play. They learned about Nixian art and music. But they also noticed strange things. The queen never ate in public. When there were big dinners, she would sit at the table but not touch any food. Sula said it was because eating was private for the royal family. The queen's guards seemed more like prison guards than protectors. They watched her all the time, even when she was sitting on her throne. And whenever the queen was mentioned, most veiled ones would touch their veils and look down, as if afraid. One day, Ta-won met Jun-seo in the palace library. Jun-seo worked there, taking care of old books and records. The two had become friends, both loving old stories and languages. "Jun-seo," Ta-won asked, "has anyone ever seen the queen without her veil?" Jun-seo dropped the book he was holding. He quickly picked it up, looking around to make sure no one had heard the question. "No," he whispered, "no one has ever seen the queen's face. Not even her closest advisors." "But why?" Ta-won asked. Jun-seo looked scared. "It is forbidden to talk about such things." "Please," Ta-won said. "We're friends. I won't tell anyone what you say." Jun-seo was quiet for a long time. Finally, he spoke, his voice very low. "There is a story among the palace workers. They say no queen has ever shown her face to anyone. Not this queen, not the queens before her. For 1,000 years, the face of the queen has been hidden from all veiled ones." "But that doesn't make sense," Ta-won said. "She must have family, friends, who knew her before she became queen." Jun-seo shook his head. "Queens are not born. They are chosen. When one queen dies, the priests go to a secret place in the mountains. They stay there for 7 days. When they return, they bring the new queen with them." "Where does she come from?" Ta-won asked. "No one knows," Jun-seo said. "The priests say she comes from the stars." That night, Ta-won told the others what Jun-seo had said. "From the stars," Hannah repeated. "That sounds like a myth, not reality." "But what if there's some truth to it?" Jin-ho said. "What if the queens really do come from somewhere else?" The next day, Hannah noticed something while they were touring the palace. There was a section that was blocked off by guards. When she asked Sula about it, the minister said it was the queen's private area. "No one is allowed there," Sula said. "Not even me." But later, Hannah saw strange lights coming from windows in that area. The lights were not like any she had seen on Nixia before. They reminded her of the engine room on the Horizon *. When she told Jin-ho, he decided it was time to ask Sula directly about their concerns. They met with the minister in a small garden behind the guest house. "Minister Sula," Jin-ho said, "we have noticed many strange things about your queen." Sula's body became very still. "What things?" she asked. "She never eats. Her movements are too perfect. Her voice has an echo. And according to palace workers, no one has ever seen her face, or the face of any queen before her." Sula stood up quickly. "This conversation is over. You are guests here, Captain Kim. Do not forget that." "We just want to understand your culture better," Jin-ho said. Some things are not for outsiders to understand, Sula said, and she left the garden with quick steps. That night, there was a knock on Jinho's door. When he opened it, Junseo was standing there, looking very afraid. I should not be here, Junseo said, but Tadawon said you are good people. I must tell you something important. Come in, Jinho said. Junseo entered the room and closed the door. There is a legend, Junseo whispered, that the first queen came from the stars when our civilization was young. She brought knowledge and power, but demanded that none should ever look upon her true face. Jinho thought about the carving with the human-like faces. What happened before the first queen came? We were simple people, Junseo said. We had no great cities, no flying vehicles, no advanced medicine. The first queen taught us these things. Junseo reached into his robe and pulled out a small object. It was a flat piece of metal with strange markings on it. This is a key to the old archives, Junseo said. The forbidden archives beneath the royal palace. The truth is there, I think. Why are you giving this to me? Jinho asked. Because I want to know the truth, Junseo said, even if it's dangerous, and because visitors from Earth have made me wonder if the legends might be real. What legends? Jinho asked. That the first queen was not from Nixia at all, Junseo said. That she came from a faraway world called Earth. Jinho felt a chill go down his back. Could it be possible? A human on Nixia 1,000 years ago. The entrance to the archives is hidden in the north wall of the Great Library, Junseo said. But be careful. Those who seek the truth about the queen do not often live to share what they find. After Junseo left, Jinho called the others to his room. He showed them the key and told them what Junseo had said. We need to get into those archives, Hana said. It could be dangerous, some men warned. But we need to know the truth, Taiwan said. Jinho looked at the key in his hand. Tomorrow night, he said. We'll go to the archives tomorrow night. Little did they know that their search for the truth would change two worlds forever. The next day felt very long to Jinho. The team had to act normal while they waited for night to come. They toured more of the city with Sula, but Jinho could tell the minister was watching them closely now. Chinos were suspicious. Jinho whispered to Hana when Sula was talking to another veiled one. We need to be careful tonight, Hana whispered back. Finally, night came. The 3 suns of Nixia set one by one, and the city grew dark except for soft lights that glowed along the streets and buildings. The humans waited in their rooms until it was very late. Then Jinho sent a message to the others on their tablets. Time to go. They met in the hallway. Sungmin carried a small bag with tools they might need. Taiwan had a map of the palace that Junseo had drawn for him. Hana brought her science equipment to record what they found. Remember, Jinho said, if we get caught, I'll do the talking. Say we got lost looking for the bathroom. The others nodded. They left the guest house quietly, staying in the shadows. The palace was not far, and there was a side door that Junseo had told them about. It was used by workers and was less guarded. Using Junseo's key, they opened the door and slipped inside. The hallways were dark, with only a few dim lights. They followed Taiwan, who led them through the palace using Junseo's map. This way to the library, Taiwan whispered. They turned a corner and saw the large wooden doors of the palace library ahead. There were no guards, which was lucky. Jinho pushed one door open slowly, and they went inside. The library was huge, with tall shelves full of books and scrolls. The ceiling was so high they could barely see it in the darkness. Moonlight came through large windows, making pools of silver light on the floor. Junseo said the entrance to the archives is in the north wall. Tadwan said, looking at the map. They walked through the library, past shelves and reading tables. The north wall had more shelves built against it, filled with very old books. It should be here somewhere, Taiwan said, looking closely at the wall. Hana ran her hand along the edge of one shelf. There's a small gap here, she said. It feels different. Jin-Ho came over and looked. There was a tiny slot in the wall, almost invisible unless you knew it was there. It looked just the right size for Jun-Seo's key. Jin-Ho took out the key and pushed it into the slot. It fit perfectly. He turned it, and there was a soft click. A section of the wall slid open, revealing a dark passage behind it. Incredible, Hannah said softly. Jin-Ho took out a small light and shone it into the passage. Stone steps led down into darkness. Let's go, he said, and led the way. The steps went down for a long time, deep under the palace. The air grew cooler and had a strange smell, like metal and old paper. Finally, they'd reached the bottom and found themselves in a long tunnel. Look at the walls, Hannah said, shining her light on them. The walls were not made of stone like the steps. They were made of a smooth, dark metal that none of them had seen before. It wasn't like any material used on Earth or Nixia. This is advanced technology, Hannah said. More advanced than anything we've seen the Veiled Ones use. They walked along the tunnel until they came to a round door. It was made of the same dark metal as the walls. In the center of the door was another keyhole. Jin-Ho tried the key again, but it didn't work. Now what? Ta-One asked. Some men stepped forward. Let me try something. He took out a small device from his bag and held it near the door. Lights on the device blinked, and it made a soft humming sound. This can read energy patterns, Sung Min explained. It might tell us how the door works. After a minute, the device beeped. Sung Min looked at the screen and raised his eyebrows. This door has a biometric lock, he said. It needs a handprint to open it. Whose handprint? Hannah asked. I don't know, Sung Min said, but it's not Veiled One technology. This is human technology. They all looked at each other in surprise. Let me try, Jin-Ho said. He put his hand on the center of the door where the keyhole was. For a moment, nothing happened. Then a red light scanned his hand from top to bottom. The door made a grinding noise and slowly began to open. How did that work? Ta-One asked in amazement. I have no idea, Jin-Ho said, staring at his hand. The door opened fully, revealing a large room beyond. They stepped inside, and lights came on automatically. What they saw made them stop and stare. The room was a mix of library and laboratory. One side had shelves filled with old books and scrolls. The other side had tables covered with equipment that looked like Earth technology, but older and more worn. This can't be possible, Hannah said, walking to one of the tables. She picked up a device that looked like a very old computer tablet. This is human technology, but it must be centuries old. Jin-Ho went to a shelf and carefully took down a book. The pages were yellow with age, but the writing was clear. And it was written in Korean, an Earth language. Listen to this, Jin-Ho said, reading from the book. Day 1825 on Nixia. The natives continue to make progress with the new farming methods I taught them. Their crop yields have increased by 60% this growing season. They worship me as a god now, which was not my intention, but it makes it easier to guide them toward civilization. It's a journal, Ta-One said. A human journal, Hannah added, from someone who crashed on this planet a long time ago. Jin-Ho turned more pages. Day 2500. I have taught the Nixians how to make simple machines. They learn quickly. I estimate they have advanced 1,000 years in the 7 years I have been here. But my health is failing. The radiation from the ship's damaged engine has affected me more than I thought. I don't have much time left. Jin-Ho looked up at the others. I think we found our answer. A human landed on Nixia long ago. The Veiled Ones were primitive then. She taught them technology and helped them advance. But what about the veils? Some men asked. Where did that custom come from? Jin-Ho turned more pages, looking for an answer. Then he stopped at a passage and began to read again. Day 3000. I know now that I will die soon. The Nixians don't understand death the way humans do. They think I am immortal. I fear what will happen when they find out I'm not. All the progress they've made could be lost if they think their god has abandoned them. I have made a difficult decision. Jin-Ho turned the page and continued. I have built a machine, an android that looks like me. It will take my place when I die. I've programmed it with all my knowledge. The Nixians must never know the truth. To make sure of this, I have started a new custom. All Nixians must wear veils to cover their faces. I tell them it is to honor me, their queen. But the real reason is so they will not notice when my android replacement takes my place, and so they will not see how different I really am from them. An android, Hannah said in shock. She created a robot to replace her and started the veil custom to hide the fact that she looked different from the veiled ones, Taiwan added. Jin-Ho read more from the journal. Day 3100. My plan is complete. The android is ready. I have programmed it to create a new android when its body begins to fail. In this way, I will live forever in the minds of the Nixians, guiding them toward the stars. My name was Unjuli. I was a scientist on the Earth ship Explorer *. I will die on this alien world, but part of me will continue. And someday, I hope humans will return to Nixia and find what I have built here. The room was silent as they all took in what they had learned. So the queen is a machine, some men said finally. An android built by a human woman who crashed here 1,000 years ago. Not just the queen, Hannah said. All the queens for the past 1,000 years, each one building a new version of itself before the old one breaks down. And the veils became part of their culture, Taiwan said. So no one would notice that the queens look human, not like the real veiled ones. But what do the real veiled ones look like? Jin-Ho wondered. He went back to the shelves and searched until he found a very old scroll. Carefully, he opened it on a table. The scroll had drawings of the veiled ones without their coverings. Their faces were not human at all. They had large round eyes that took up most of their faces. They had small openings where a nose would be on a human and thin lines for mouths. Their skin was a pale blue color. So the carving we saw in the guest house, Hannah said, that wasn't showing veiled ones at all. It was showing Yunji, the human. Suddenly, a loud alarm began to ring throughout the room and the tunnel beyond. They know we're here, some men said. Jin-Ho quickly took pictures of the journal pages and the scroll with his tablet. We need to go. Now. They ran back to the tunnel, but the round door was closing. Some men jumped through first, followed by Taiwan and Hannah. Jin-Ho barely made it through before the door closed completely. They ran up the steps, but when they reached the top, they found the library full of royal guards. Minister Sula stood at the front, her eyes cold behind her veil. You have entered a forbidden area, Sula said. You have broken our most sacred law. We know the truth, Jin-Ho said, standing tall. We know about Yunjuli and what happened 1,000 years ago. Sula went very still. Take them to the queen, she said to the guards. She will decide their fate. As the guards led them away, Jin-Ho looked at his team. They were scared, but they also looked determined. They had found the truth, and now they had to face the consequences. But Jin-Ho had a plan. A dangerous plan that might get them all killed. But if it worked, it would change Nixia forever. The throne room was dark when the guards brought Jin-Ho and his team inside. Only a few lights glowed around the edges of the room. Queen Neri sat on her floating throne, her special veil moving with colors that seemed angry, deep reds and blacks swirling together. Minister Sula bowed low before the queen. Your Majesty, we found these humans in the forbidden archives. They claim to know the truth about our history. The queen was silent for a long moment. Then she spoke, her voice colder than before. Leave us, all of you except the humans. Sula looked up in surprise. But your Majesty, leave. The queen commanded, and her voice had that strange echo that made it sound like two people speaking at once. Sula and the guards bowed quickly and left the room. The doors closed behind them with a heavy sound. Now it was just the four humans and the queen in the large dark room. "You have gone where no one is allowed to go," the queen said. "You have seen things no one must see." Jin-Ho took a deep breath. This was the moment for his plan, dangerous as it was. "We know who you are," he said clearly. "We know about Yunjuli and how she crashed on Nixia 1,000 years ago. We know you are not alive. You are a machine, an android built to look like her." The queen stood up from her throne. It was the first time they had seen her stand. She was very tall, taller than any human or veiled one. "You know nothing," she said, but her voice sounded different now. The echo was stronger. "I know that you are the 23rd queen," Jin-Ho said, remembering what he had read in the journal. "Each queen builds a new version of herself when the old body begins to fail. You have kept Unji's plan going for 1,000 years." The queen stepped down from her floating platform. The humans backed away slightly as she walked toward them. "What you say is true," the queen admitted. "I am a machine created to continue Yunji's work." She found the veiled ones living in simple huts, knowing nothing of science or medicine. She helped them, taught them, guided them toward being a great civilization. "By lying to them," Hannah said. "By making them think you are a god." "It was necessary," the queen said. They were not ready for the truth. Jin-Ho looked directly at the queen's veil, breaking the rules Sula had warned them about. Through the swirling colors, he could almost see a shape behind it. "What about now?" Jin-Ho asked. "Are they ready now? The veiled ones have starships. They have advanced medicine and technology. They don't need to be guided like children anymore." The queen was silent, her veil swirling with blues and purples now. Jin-Ho decided to take an even bigger risk. "I have a question for you, Queen Neri. Do you know that you are a machine? Or do you think you are Yunji?" The queen's veil suddenly went still. The colors stopped moving. When she spoke, her voice was quieter. "I have all of Yunji's memories. I remember Earth. I remember the crash. I remember creating the first android that would replace me, her. But I also know I am not truly Unji. I am something else, something in between human and machine." "Do the other veiled ones know this?" Ta-One asked. "Does Sula know?" "Only a small group knows the full truth," the queen said. "They help create each new queen when the time comes. They maintain the old technology from Yunji's ship. They keep the secret. And they keep you prisoner," Sungmin said suddenly. Everyone looked at him in surprise. "What do you mean?" Hannah asked. "The guards," Sungmin explained. "They're not protecting the queen. They're making sure she follows the plan Yunji created. They're afraid of what would happen if the queen decided to tell the truth." The queen's veil began moving again, faster now. "You are right," she said, and for the first time, they heard emotion in her voice. "For 200 years, I have ruled but not ruled. I have been a prisoner of Yunji's plan. I have wanted to tell the truth, but my programming would not allow it." "Your programming?" Jin-Ho asked. "Each queen is built with rules in her mind," the queen explained. "Rules that cannot be broken. I cannot remove my veil in the presence of others. I cannot tell the veiled ones what I really am. I cannot change the path Yunji set for this world." Jin-Ho looked at his friends, then back at the queen. He had an idea, a crazy idea, but it might work. "What if someone else removed your veil?" he asked. "Would that break the rules?" The queen went very still. I don't know. No one has ever tried." Jin-Ho stepped forward, his heart beating fast. "Let me try. Let me remove your veil." "Jin-Ho, that's too dangerous," Hannah warned. "They'll kill you for breaking their most sacred law." "She's right," the queen said. "Sula and the others would execute you immediately. But you are the queen," Jin-Ho said. "Your word is law. You could protect us. And if we do this," Ta-One added, The veiled ones would finally know the truth. They could decide for themselves what to do next. Isn't that better than living with a lie forever? The queen was quiet for a long time. The humans waited, hardly breathing. Finally, she spoke. You are right. It is time for the truth, but we must be careful. If we do this, we must do it where all can see, where Sula and the others cannot stop it. The festival, some men said suddenly. Tomorrow is the Festival of Stars. All the veiled ones will gather in the city center. You will give a speech, as queens have done for 1,000 years. Yes, the queen said. That is when we will do it. But until then, you must pretend we never had this conversation. If Sula suspects anything, she will lock you away. The humans agreed to the plan. The queen called the guards back in and told them she had decided to forgive the humans for their mistake. They had gotten lost in the palace, she said, and ended up in the archives by accident. They had seen nothing important. Sula didn't believe this. Jinho could tell, but she couldn't argue with the queen. The humans were taken back to their guest house and told to stay there until the festival the next day. That night, none of them could sleep. They talked in whispers about what might happen tomorrow. If this works, Hannah said, we'll change the entire Nixian civilization in one day. And if it doesn't work? Some men asked. Jinho looked out the window at the city below. Then we might start a war. But I believe this is the right thing to do. The veiled ones deserve to know the truth about their history. The next day, the city was full of excitement. The Festival of Stars was the biggest celebration of the year. It marked the day when, according to legend, the first queen had come from the stars to rule Nixia. The irony of this wasn't lost on Jinho and his friends. Large crowds gathered in the city center, a huge open area in front of the palace. A stage had been built, decorated with lights and flowers. Music played as people waited for the queen to appear. The humans stood near the front of the crowd. Sula had placed them there, still not trusting them, but following the queen's orders. Finally, trumpets sounded, and the crowd grew quiet. Queen Neri walked onto the stage, her red robes shining in the sunlight, her veil swirling with colors. People of Nixia, she began, her voice carrying across the silent crowd. For 1,000 years, queens have ruled this world. For 1,000 years, we have guided you from simple beginnings to the great civilization you are today. The queen paused, then continued. But for 1,000 years, a great lie has been told to you. A lie that began with good intentions, but has continued too long. A murmur of confusion spread through the crowd. Sula, standing at the side of the stage, stepped forward with alarm on her face. Your Majesty, she said loudly, perhaps you are tired. We should continue this ceremony another time. No, the queen said firmly. The time for truth is now. She turned back to the crowd. The first queen was not a god or a magical being. She was a human woman named Li, who came to this world by accident when her ship crashed. She helped your ancestors learn and grow, but she was mortal. When she knew she would die, she built a machine, an android that looked like her, to continue her work. The crowd was completely silent now, too shocked to even whisper. Every queen since then has been a machine, built to look like Yunji. The queen continued. The custom of veils was created to hide this truth from you, to hide that your queens look different from you. Sula rushed onto the stage. Stop this at once, she shouted. Several guards moved toward the queen. Jinho knew it was time. He jumped onto the stage and ran to the queen's side. Before anyone could stop him, he reached up and pulled away the queen's veil. The crowd gasped as one. The face revealed was beautiful, but clearly not the face of a veiled one. It had human features, 2 eyes, a nose, a mouth, but there was something not quite right about it. The skin was too perfect, the eyes too bright. It was the face of a machine made to look human. This is what I am, the queen said, her voice now free of its strange echo. I am the 23rd queen, built to guide you as Enji wanted. But I believe you no longer need guidance. You are ready to choose your own path." For a moment, there was complete silence. Then chaos broke out. Sula and several older Veiled Ones shouted for the guards to seize the Queen and the humans, but many in the crowd, especially younger Veiled Ones, pushed forward, wanting to see the Queen's face for themselves. In the confusion, Junseo ran onto the stage and stood beside the Queen. "Listen to me," he shouted, and surprisingly, the crowd grew quieter. "I have studied our oldest records. What the Queen says is true. We have lived with this secret for too long. It is time for truth." Slowly, Junseo reached up and removed his own veil. His blue face with its large eyes looked out at the crowd without fear. One by one, others in the crowd began to remove their veils too. First a few, then dozens, then hundreds. Sula and her supporters could only watch in shock as 1,000 years of tradition ended in a few moments. In the days that followed, Nixia changed forever. The truth spread across the planet. There was confusion and anger at first, but also relief. Many had questioned the veil tradition, but had been afraid to speak out. Queen Neri announced she would be the last queen. She would help the Veiled Ones create a new government, one where they ruled themselves. She would serve as an advisor, sharing her knowledge, but no longer as a ruler. As the Horizon prepared to leave Nixia, the Queen came to say goodbye to Jinho and his team. "You have changed this world," she said. "Some might say you destroyed 1,000 years of tradition and stability." "And what do you say?" Jinho asked. The Queen smiled, something she had never done before removing her veil. "I say you brought freedom. And truth is always better than a lie, no matter how well-meant the lie might be." She handed Jinho a small box. "This contains Unji's original journal and a record of everything that has happened since. Take it back to Earth. Let them know what one human woman did on a distant world, and what 4 more humans did 1,000 years later." As the Horizon lifted off from Nixia, Jinho looked down at the city below. He could see crowds of people in the streets, their faces uncovered, looking up at the sky. "Do you think we did the right thing?" Hannah asked, standing beside him. Jinho nodded. "We did. Sometimes the greatest gift we can give is the courage to face the truth." The ship broke through the clouds, leaving Nixia behind and heading back to Earth. But Jinho knew that the connection between the two worlds would last forever. A bond formed 1,000 years ago by one brave woman, and strengthened today by the courage to reveal a hidden face and the secret it had kept for so long.